So we gotta talk about Lost Soul Aside, man. The game has been out as of 2 days at this point, and this is the long-awaited project that we all have been waiting for, especially me personally. I've covered this game, I've talked a lot about this game, and Jesus, man, it's not looking too good. So today I want to just dive a little bit into Lost Soul Aside. As of right now, I've only played the demo, but from a lot of reports, I want to talk a little bit about what the game and why this game is dropped at a mixed reviews, almost mostly negative reviews. This indie action RPG that's been making waves for all the wrong reasons. After years of developmental hype, which keep in mind, it was a decade. I remember when this game first got released onto a random YouTube video, and it got hyped ever since, and this was a solely dev project that just got picked up by Sony. This is essentially supposed to be the next spiritual successor to something like Final Fantasy 15 or Devil May Cry, which this has now launched as of August 29th, 2025. And boy, let me tell you what, between all of social media and as well as the Steam reviews, it's absolutely brutal for this. And I talked a lot of hype around this game. I made a previous video just talking about the overall just story about how Yang Bing started off as just somebody small and got his way to a CEO and director. But I believe that right there might have played a big part into why this game may be looking at 58% positive reviews, which puts it squarely into the mixed territory. But here's the thing. I've been hands-on with the game so far, so I want to kind of give my little bit of my little POV on the matter, just from playing the demo, as well as just looking at what's going on in some of the gameplay footage that I've seen from other people. And I feel like there's a little bit more to the story than the review bombs are suggesting. And I kind of want to just give you my first look and impressions at what's currently going on in this space. So first off, let's start with what makes this game, like what gets right, what they get it right. And the entire point of this is to capture the essence of classic Devil May Cry. The gameplay DNA in itself is unmistakable. Our protagonist, Kaiser, however you want to pronounce his name, wields multiple weapons through his monster lord demon, whatever we want to call him, named Arena. That's basically reminds me of Dante's devil arms that are just reimagined. The combat flow, the weapon switching during combos, and even the way combos chain together, it's all there. It definitely seems like they are paying definitely homage to the likes of like Dante with his swapping of weapons and stuff of that nature, or even like Noctis in Final Fantasy 15 with the way his combat was. But this is where it starts to get a bit interesting. Kaiser basically has his own transformation mechanic that's clearly inspired by Dante's Devil Trigger, except this time his hair turns white and he gets this massive power boost. And if you're a Virgil fan like I am, you'll love that Kaiser has his own variation of the Judgment Cut. I've let that boy off a couple of times in the demo. The developers were not shy about their influence, and honestly, I can respect that. You showing love to one of the goats of the action genre series, so you got to. But the combat system has this risk reward element that sets it apart though. Your dodging and blocking are tied to your stamina bar, and blocking honestly is not really blocking. It's more of a parry kind of counter system. This means every defensive action has weight and consequences, which creates some genuinely tense moments during gameplay. So during my time in the demo, I want to talk a little bit about the characters. So first off, we meet Gaitha. When it comes to demo, I have no clue what's going on, but we meet Gaitha and Liana. Now Liana, she serves as a hub character essentially, because she allows Kaiser to allows us to save our progress, craft some different items. We can shop for different items like healing potions and such. And there's also the battle simulator, which basically acts as the game's combat practice, just to practice your moves and combos of that sort. And also, just between all three, well, all four, I would say, between Arena, Kaiser, Liana, and Gaitha, their character designs are actually pretty solid. I enjoyed Kaiser's design during the overall initial hype and showcase of him back 10 years ago, and even 10 years later. His design's pretty cool. Both Gaitha and Liana have distinct visual personalities that work kind of well in this world. But this is where things start to get a bit shaky. And I genuinely, when we're looking at visuals, like the backdrop of the particularly the demo, and from what other people are saying overall with Steam's criticism behind it, this game overall just looks like it's just bland in the background and the characters stand out like a sore thumb. Like it feels like these characters just somehow do not fit the world that they are in. But both Kaiser, the one thing that I want to take note, because this I've been seeing this argument thrown in time and time again, is the voice acting feels off. Now, I will say this though, both Kaiser and Liana's performances lack that kind of punch that you expect from a game that's trying to capture that DMC energy or that Final Fantasy 15 energy. Like it's not absolutely terrible. Like I've been hearing that thrown around just based off the demo, but it's noticeable enough that it kind of pulls you out of those epic moments the game is trying to create. One thing that makes Dante so well and loved is just like the way his voice actor like really brought Dante onto the screen, the witty remarks and everything like that. I'm not saying everybody has to be like Dante. We don't need another Dante. He's perfect as a character. But no matter which version of Dante you played with, depending on which game you played, between DMC 1, DMC 2, but DMC 3, 4, and 5, he just has this tone in his voice that like it fits that gothic aesthetic on devils and demons that Devil May Cry is trying to tell. But when I look at Kaiser, it just seems like he's a little bit too monologue-y, a little bit too monotone for my opinion. And Liana, for example, she's this upbeat character. She feels like something ripped right out of an anime or something of that nature, or like a K-pop performance of some sort. It's just like it does not fit the world we're in. And when I think of DMC, like I think of Dante, I think of Trish, I think of Lady, and each of the characters have just a good voice acting performance that fits the game that it's a part of. But moving forward with between those criticisms and just my POV on that matter, I want to speak a little bit about some of the epic moments that you will be able to experience just even with me playing the demo. Let's talk about Victor, right? So he is your first real boss encounter from the Holy Order. This fight is where that stamina-based defense system really kind of shows its teeth. Victor throws out screen-spanning attacks that force you to make split-second decisions about whether you want to dodge or whether you want to parry. It's genuinely challenging and rewarding when you nail it, but then we hit some of those technical issues again that are plaguing the Steam's version. I don't know how it is on the console, guys, but looking at Steam, boy, they're bitching. The towering, I got one particular rant. The towering winged boss fight, which is the last boss fight of the demo I experienced, bro, I had significant frame drops during some of the laser beams attacks and some of the attacks that he would do. And I'm just like, brother, and I'm talking about some noticeable stuttering that breaks the flow of combat. And I was just like, what is going on? But this wasn't just me. Steam reviews are filled with the performance complaints, and especially on mid-range hardware. The game loves its cinematic moments, sometimes to a fault. There's the sequence where Kaiser surfs down a hill on a sword while being chased by the army. Visually, it's impressive, but mechanically, it's a little bit to desire, essentially. You're basically essentially on rails while enemies shoot at you, and I just found myself really wishing for more agency in these set pieces. Now, I know you cannot attack or do anything of that nature because technically Kaiser is how you're riding, and he's basically put himself in sword form, and Kaiser is riding Arena like he is a skateboard, essentially, or a hoverboard. Now, that part right there, it just felt like I was automatically driving. I really couldn't do too much, and I'm just sitting here just like T-posing essentially down this epic battle scene where everything's getting shot at you. Like, it feels so out of place, and that's the part where I'm like, that's a bit odd. And it's just like, certain set pieces, especially if we're trying to go back to those day and age like Ninja Gaiden, Final Fantasy 15, or Devil May Cry, where different set pieces kind of made you feel like a badass. This particular moment here did not feel like I was a badass. And even in some of the cutscenes where Kazur's basically aura farming his way through different things, and you can see him in arena moving to and from different locations, it just feels so out of place. It feels so out of place. I'm sorry. Like I feel like there's could be so much more done with this game when it comes to those set pieces, but it feels like it's one after another of like these set pieces. There's not really much time to breathe, and it's just like it feels like it's a bit forced with some of the making him feel like a badass. Like when I look at Dante from Devil May Cry 1, like he just breathed aura farming. Anybody who played DMC back in the day, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, did not matter what cutscene he was a part of, he always took control of the room, no matter which game he was. Like, he was always that center of attention. And if Kazur is supposed to be this spiritual successor, or if any of these major characters that have done it in the past, it does not. It feels like he's trying a bit too hard to be the badass when it comes to cinematic cutscenes. Now, of course, granted, this is based off the demo that I was playing. Based off the demo, with it being $60, I believe now I need it's time to address the elephant in the room. And it's of course something I've already lingered a little bit throughout this video, the Steam reviews. Now, the criticism falls into several different categories. Performance issues are the biggest complaint, with many players reporting stuttering, frame drops, and just overall optimization problems. The PC port feels rushed compared to the PS5 version, which is somehow getting a bit of a better reception overall. There's also a pushback on the $60 price tag. Now, for me, I have an agreement to this $60 price tag. I feel like the hard part about this is that Expedition 33 exists. And I feel like that is now the new bar for a indie game turned, almost AAA experience, right? And it's hard to compare. That's the thing about Expedition 33. It's at that point where that's the new standard of like what AAA quality indie games should feel like, especially if they're pushing some of these expensive price tags. And some people may see this as a 6 to 8 hour experience overall for $60. And with it having all of this, a lot of people are not really that happy. Players are comparing it unfavorably to other indie action games that just offer more content for less money. Like I said, Expedition 33 is a perfect example. This was a $40 to $50 game, and it basically changed the entire indie scene this year. So another complaint is story pacing. The game throws you into an intense action sequence without breathing room for character development, especially in the demo. Now, a lot of people did not like the pacing of it who have actually physically bought the game and is leaving the reviews. But the interesting part is many of the negative reviews have acknowledged the game's potential, and that's where I will also step in as well. This game has crap ton of potential that it's absolutely crazy. With the core combat being a bit solid, visual design can be striking, technical issues that are not getting in the way, it delivers that DMC style power fantasy moments effectively. This game has so much potential that it's crazy. The sound, the audio, like the music itself, like especially in the last Tower boss, I genuinely enjoyed it. I wasn't the biggest fan of Victor's soundtrack or the mini boss fight that you have it halfway through. It's okay. Now, of course, with buying the game, I know there's other songs out there that I've heard when it came to it. I'm like, okay, but then it's like, shit, I go back to Devil May Cry, back when the soundtrack for the entire game was just banger. You always just enjoyed every single song that even appeared. Then there's Expedition 33. Every song in that game is a banger. So it's just like, when I look at this, it's hard but I feel like we're missing the bigger picture here. And I feel like this goes back to my last point of a solo dev getting picked up and becoming a CEO and a director. What we're seeing with Lost on the Side reflects a broader challenge in indie game development. This started essentially as a one-person passion project that grew into something much larger. And I will always say, like in my last video, I love the fact that Young Being is following his dreams, and that's I want anybody to follow their dreams. Do it. Don't let nobody stop you, because the ambition is admirable, but the execution shows the strain of scaling that process. Now, I will say this though, is because this is his passion project, I will continue just like hoping to God that things change up and stuff. And when I hopped on Twitter or X, the developer is actively working on patches, which gives me hope for this game. The foundation is solid enough that performance fixes and quality of life improvements could significantly change the game's reception. We've seen games recover from rough launches before. Look at Cyberpunk, look at No Man's Sky. Those are major games that are holding up even almost years after the fact of its initial release. For DMC fans specifically, there's definitely something here that is worth experiencing, especially if you can look past the crazy technical rough edges. The combat system has enough unique elements to feel fresh while still scratching that stylish action itch. So now that brings me to one final question. Where does this leave Lost Soul Aside? It's overall a flawed gem that shows both promise and perils of ambitious indie development. Their Steam reviews tell part of that story, but they don't capture the moments when this game truly shines. If you're willing to deal with some of the technical issues for solid DMC-inspired combat, there's fun to be had here. Just maybe wait for a few patches if you're on PC. And I also would say at this point right now, with it sitting at a $60 price tag, me personally, wait for patches, wait for a sale. If the developer can drop it down to maybe 40 bucks, maybe 35, hopefully. Now, of course, this where the next issue comes into, because he was picked up by a big company, which that company is Sony. And I don't think Sony would be that egregious with any particular sale cuts of that nature, and now we're stuck with a $60 game, and it seems like Sony is not going to budge. But hopefully if they could drop 20 bucks off on it or something of that nature, and on top of the patches that the developer will put out, then maybe this may be something worthwhile. Some stuff like the voice acting is going to be hard to really cover because, hey, it's voice acting. Like I said, if it gets better in the long run, hopefully, but right now with some of the stuff that a lot of people are arguing about and complaining about, hopefully those could be fixed through some quality of life improvements, and as well as just fixing some of the bugs. But what do you think, Outcast? Have you tried Lost Soul Aside yet? Did you buy it already? Did you play the demo? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hey, and if you enjoyed this little review, first impressions look at Lost Soul Aside, then definitely hit the like button, subscribe for more in-depth coverage on your games. And as always, until next time, Outcast, I want you to stay safe out there. And it's been your host, KSTTV, signing out. Peace.